blocking. The modern drafter does not do a lot of free drawing like what we're teaching you how to do in here. A lot of you will more than likely go to a bigger company, so the method that you will be doing is kind of a drag and drop. You'll have a menu that's up usually on your second or your alternate monitor. You'll have a menu up over there. You need something, a fitting, a symbol, you'll go over there and drag it out into your drawing and then possibly rotate as needed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk a lot of what the smaller companies, smaller engineering and drafting companies will do is making blocks. Now, up in the jobs that I've worked on, I haven't worked in the cubicle world, I don't care to. So I've been what I feel is lucky enough not to have to work in the cubicle world. So I haven't worked for super large companies. About the biggest one I worked for was CB&I, which did have, well, when we were at Island Park, there was like 500 to 700 people there. But I was the only structural drafter and there was 2 pipe drafters. So there was only 3 drafters on site, a few engineers. But most of the engineering stuff was done off-site. We just did the smaller projects in-house. It was still CB&I that was doing it, but it was CB&I in Houston or somewhere else that did a lot of fabrication drawings going out to the shop. So that was probably the biggest, but I still didn't have that big library that you have with a lot of your bigger engineering firms. That library that I'm talking about is not somewhere where you go and pull a book out. That library is a symbol library. Your objects or symbols are drawn, and like I said, you just go over to a menu over there and you drag it into your screen, maybe move it, rotate it, put it into place, things like that. So what we're going to talk about today is going to be building blocks. Before I get too far into it, also, Mr. Spooner put a note over here. So remember, we've usually got stuff up on this table for y'all. We've got the list of the 2024 spring semester drafting classes, but there's also a notice over here about a job for Neutron and Beaumont. Now, something I read on there is they're looking for 4th semester or graduate students. So students that I'm assuming that are going to be graduating this semester or 4th semester in the spring. So if any of you qualify, or if you just want to send them an email, send them a resume. You never know, you may get that call to come in. We've had students as early as 2nd semester get on with fairly large companies. I know, what was her name? Can't think of her name right now. Addie went to work like about 2 weeks into her 2nd semester. She went to work for RDS over there, one of our bigger hiring companies around here. She went to work over there and she was asking us stuff, and I was like, well, you know, it's still kind of early in your drafting career. Just, you know, be open, listen, learn, just like you would be doing up here, but pay attention and pick up anything you can. I didn't have, you know, high hopes of her being able to stay there, being that she was so new to the industry, so new to drafting, period. She wasn't like she came from another college and had classes before. I don't know that she did it in high school or anything. I think this was her first drafting classes, and shortly into her 2nd semester, she got hired on with a big company, but she ended up staying there for probably about 2 or 3 years until they had big layoffs during COVID. And then she went to a small electrical company right here across MLK, just down a little ways from the Montaigne. And she worked there for a little while, and even she told them when she went to work there, said, look, I'm not planning on staying here any longer than I have to. And she told them this in the interview, meaning that I'm just waiting for that call to go to a better company, a bigger company. And she did. Within a couple of months, she got a call or got on at Entergy, and so she left. I can't remember what that electric company is, Ian something electric. But anyway, so you know, there's never too early to at least get your name in there. Whether or not you get the position, whether or not you're able to perform at the position, I think you can, as long as you're able to come in and accept what they're willing to give you and learn from that. Because a lot of the employers around here look at it as, okay, we've got this student that's still going to school. They're going to be part-time. We're going to work around their school schedule so they can be part-time up here, which means we don't have to give them insurance, vacation, holiday pay, and less cost per hour for somebody that's still in school. So it is a plus to them, but they're also getting lots of times a medium skill level when you go in there. Don't be afraid to put your name out there. Don't be afraid to get that first interview out of the way if you haven't been to one. I've been to a lot of different interviews. The weirdest one, I think, was I walked in, this lady led me in out there at DuPont and Orange. We went in, I did my whole safety thing. She came and got me at the gate. There's this probably 100-foot wide steps, like 3 or 4 steps going up into the big administration building. And that's where I was going for the interview. There was only like 3 or 4 steps up, but it was, like I said, probably close to 100-foot wide of the steps going across there. But right in the center, there was this little handrail that went up. DuPont is all about safety. She goes, keep your hand on the handrail when you go up here. I thought she was joking. She was serious. They'll run you out of the plant just for walking up anywhere up them stairs, not using that handrail. Just 3 steps. It's not like you're going up a flight of steps or anything. But then when I saw it, I'm already like, well, that's kind of weird. And so we got inside, and she goes, all right. And I thought she was the one that was going to be interviewing me. I think her name was Rose. She brought me inside, and she goes, all right, just go in there and sit down, and they'll interview you. And I was like, Dave. So I walked in, there was like 5 people on the other side of this table, and I was on my side. They would ask me a question, something I try to do whenever I'm doing this, is make eye contact. Try to be positive, smile. Don't let the nerves in your gut get over and come out your head and come out your mouth. No cracking, so some of the things that you just learn with experience to relax and stuff. But that was probably the strangest type of interview. Where I'm at now, I've had like 3 or 4 jobs that I've worked that I knew I had the job going into the interview, but it doesn't matter. I was still nervous. This job where I'm at, which 3 years today, I've been at DD6. I went in and knowing that I had the job, all I had to do was just have a decent interview. I out-qualified any of the other applicants. They made sure of that. The job was just like when I got hired on here. The job description was tailored based on my resume. So I knew there was very little chance that I would not get that job unless I just totally went in there and blew it. But still, I walked in with, this many years of experience. I walked in with butterflies. So be ready for that. That's not something that, I'm gonna go to a bunch of interviews while I'm still in school, so I'm not nervous after I graduate. In my opinion, you're still gonna be, because there's a lot riding on that. Just try to relax, go in, smile, be positive. Don't oversell yourself. Oh yeah, I'm great at AutoCAD, when you get in and they find out different. Something else, here's another note to you too. Don't lie to them. I had a guy call me up, I guess about 2 weeks ago, and in fact, David ended up getting the job. David and Luis, I think, was the only 2 that interviewed for it from here. But there was another person that interviewed, and he emailed me about him, says, do you remember this student? How was he as a student? And I was like, when I read the name, it was just kind of like when you bite a lemon. I just got that taste in my mouth, like, what's that name? I don't remember the name. I don't remember the person. There's just something that's not a good mental feeling for me. And so I ended up digging up some old grade sheets, and sure enough, that student did not finish. They were claiming that they were a graduate from LIT, but they were hesitant or refusing to be able to produce a copy of their diploma, anything showing that they had received their degree, and sure enough, they had not received their degree. So we're just a phone call away for them people to check up on a lot of the stuff you put on there, whether it's past employers or past schooling, and to verify stuff like that. So don't oversell yourself. You're not trying to win the job. You're just trying to be honest and get the job on your merits. That way, when you walk in and they sit you down at a desk, you're not letting them down. You're not showing them that, oh, maybe I didn't learn as much as I said I did. Did y'all have to do a drawing test for this one? So that's something I'm seeing a lot now with the interviews, is they'll bring you in for an interview and you'll interview, and then they'll sit down and give you a little drawing test. At DD6, when I interviewed there, I had to wait about a month because of COVID. But when I interviewed there, I went in with the past student who is now an engineer, who was the one that was helping me get hired on, that called me about the position. And I went in and sat down with him and did some work, not in AutoCAD, but in Civil 3D, which I've been studying up. Most of your job postings will show the software that they use. So go home, and if you got 5 days to your interview, go home on YouTube and any other resources you can. If it's a software that you can download for free for a 30-day trial, download it and watch YouTube on one screen and that going on the other. Practice, play. because that lots of times will make or break how you do. You can have a great resume, have a great interview, but not be able to perform on the computer. They don't want just a smiling face in there. They want somebody that's going to sit in that office or sit in that cubicle and produce work so their company makes money. So they're doing a lot more of the on-job training. So I went in and I did that little test on the Civil 3D, and then we went up front, and there was, I think, 3 people that interviewed. Yeah, Butch, Karen, and Ernie. So Ernie I knew I already had. He's the one that told me about the position. Karen, the way she was looking at me, I knew I had her too. The other one was the main one, which is the engineer that is now the head engineer there, Butch. And so as we were talking, like I said, just like with those 5 people, I was trying to make eye contact with them. A little bit of, that's not really training, that's just how I am. So I was trying to make eye contact, and about halfway through the interview process of them asking me questions, Butch and I, because he had said right after I got in there that I looked familiar, he thinks he had met me before or something. And we found out that when I was teaching a GIS program that used to be here at LIT, that's no longer here anymore, Geographic Information Systems, something I do on a daily basis now. But I taught in that program before they did away with the program here at LIT. And when I was talking about that, I said, yes, I did some work, and I can't remember who it is now, but I did some work when I was learning to teach that class with this guy over here at this company. That's where I know you from. He just jumped out. Yeah, that's when he was the owner of Leap Engineering, who was partnered with the people that I was doing the work, the training for, so I could teach a GIS class. So bam, I had all 3 of them. I knew, and sure enough, a week later, I got the call. So it's always good to have that going for you, but I don't rely on that, even though I've gotten several jobs. That's great when you've already got somebody in there saying, pulling for you, saying, we gotta hire this person. But it's still lots of times will boil down to your personality in the interview. Are you somebody that can work with other people, which is something that they frequently ask us. Is this person a team player, or are they just somebody that's gonna sit there and work on their own? Team player, that means that, all right, you have engineering meetings pretty regular, you have group meetings of drafting. These bigger companies, it's not just one pipe system, it's not just one drafter working on the job. There might be 30 or 40 drafters on the job. So you might be tying into some other person over there, into what they're drawing, who is tying into some other person over there, what they're drawing, who's back around on the other side tying into you. So you need to be able to communicate with people. You need to be able to get up and ask questions and not just guess and make it look right and fake it. I have seen a couple of people, and I think I've rung it up in about three drawings this semester of don't override your dimensions. In other words, when you pick that point, you put that dimension up there, and AutoCAD says 3'6 1/4, and you're like, oh crap, it's supposed to be 3'3". Let me just double click on that dimension and change the text. That doesn't work. It was obvious to me. I see it. I've got ways that I can tell by looking at a printed drawing lots of times to see it. It just jumps out at me. But it's whether or not can be seen or not isn't always the thing, because a lot of places, yeah, you send that drawing out there and they fabricate based on the numbers that are on there. A lot of drawings are shipped out there electronically, and it is the machines that are doing the cutting and the clipping and the burning, and lots of times the welding also. So be specific, draw it correctly, and like I said, practice on this tool of AutoCAD. Whether it's AutoCAD or whatever software they're using, the better you are at this tool right here, it's going to allow you to adjust and adapt to another software. You're not going to be having to worry about the software as much because you've already mastered this one. And I can tell you, in the dozen or so softwares that I've worked on, played on, trained on, and learned, CAD softwares, X is still X, Y is still Y. They just perform differently and operate differently. But if you're okay with the tool, it doesn't matter if it's a Craftsman hammer or a Stanley hammer. If it's got the claw part on the back side, or if it's a double-sided or ball peen, it doesn't matter. You look at it as a hammer is a hammer. You need me to drive a nail to show you I can hammer something? Sure, no problem. It don't matter which hammer you got. Yeah, I'll use that one right there. It doesn't matter to me. That's the way you should be with this tool right here, AutoCAD. And like I said, all your other softwares will allow you to bring that stuff in. Alright, so, but those papers are up there about that job posting. It said, even if you don't qualify for what they say, it says on there, Any interested graduating or 4-semester drafting students, send their resumes. Don't be shy. They might be ready for somebody to come in a lower pay, not having to pay them benefits, not having to pay them holiday, limited time on there, but it gets your foot in the door. Kind of like Addie, she jumped into 12 foot deep, not knowing how to swim, or just knowing how to dog paddle. Next thing you know, she's out there swimming like a fish. So she did great with it. I was worried about it, worried that it was gonna overwhelm her because she wasn't trained in it, but she's just hard-headed enough to say, no, I can do it. And sometimes that's what you gotta be able to do. So, go ahead and send your resume in if you're interested in it. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna talk about is gonna be something that you will see if you go into one of these larger drafting firms. So what we have here is just a simple drawing with a rectangle. That's all it is. It's not 3D, it's just a 2D rectangle. You will see that it is correctly positioned based on 0, 0. So what we've got here, in an engineering department, you may have a company that you're doing the job for. So maybe you're working for RDS or Jacobs or somebody else. You're Borough Global. You're working for them, but you're doing a job for a refinery, Exxon Mobil. So Exxon Mobil says, well, look, we've got this job that you're gonna do for us. Y'all got the contract, y'all won the bid. What I need y'all to do is in your drawing so we can make sure that it works with our facility. So before you send that drawing to us, we want it in a format that we can just dump into that virtual model, which we've already got drawn of our whole entire refinery. We've got the whole 3D done of, virtually inside the computer of our entire facility. All the pipes, instrumentation, architecture, everything is in this drawing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send you a drawing with the box. This box is your area that your project will be done inside. So what they do is they will send over a DWG, a regular drawing file, and the boss or whoever the supervisor of that project is says, okay, everybody, I put this on the server for you to put into your drawing. And it's called an XREF. So what we do is, it's kind of like a watermark on a page. If you get a piece of paper that's already got some little design kind of watermarked into it, that's similar to what you're doing. You can't make changes to the drawing. The only person that has the true DWG file is going to be the supervisor or whoever is over that project. And so what they do is they make that XREF available to everyone else. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, okay, this is the drawing that Exxon Mobil sent us. I guess y'all can see that. They sent us a layout of our facility. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna say, okay, we've drawn our project. This was all the project was just some civil concrete boxes that we're putting out there for them to put some vessels on. Not a problem. So they say, all right, I've drawn it, boss. Okay, the boss says, okay, well, Exxon Mobil just sent over that footprint that we're adhering to. Not a problem, boss. I drew it just off the dimensions you gave me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in that rectangle. I'm gonna bring it in as what's called an XREF. XREFs work different in a lot of your Autodesk products. Up there where I'm at working on Civil 3D, we have a lot of stuff that's XREF that we use, but it does the same as AutoCAD General like what we have here. So when I go into the XREF command, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be attaching that drawing file to this one. Now this is one of the newer things that came in with AutoCAD. Let me see if I can remember how to work it. Yes. So what I can do is pull this down right here and I can attach different items, different types of items. I'll show you also later on today how to bring in other things like images, and we don't go through this XREF process, but to do it with the full XREF plan, to bring it in as a watermark that we can't really modify, that's what I'm going to show you, which is what would be done in industry. So I'm going to tell AutoCAD that I want to attach a drawing. AutoCAD says, what drawing do you want to attach? I'm going to go ahead and close it. Well, I can't right now. I'll go ahead and stay with you. So I'm going to go through and attach that first drawing that I just showed y'all, just that rectangular box. You can see it showing up in here. So when I bring it in, I'm going to bring it in as an attachment. I've already browsed and found the file. I'm going to leave my scale 1 to 1. I'm going to leave my insertion point set at 0, 0, 0. And that's something that the students in fourth semester advanced pipe are doing right now. We're learning how to 3D model pipes, but it's not just a matter of modeling those and being able to model those fittings, those elbows, those T's, those reducers, that pipe. It's a process of knowing where to place that. So right now when we're doing 3D, like I told y'all the last couple of weeks, I will try to give you a 0, 0 if I don't remind me, because you need to know where that project or that drawing needs to be located at in this virtual world. Because we're not always just drawing right there at 0, 0, 0. In the real world, when you get out there, you might be drawing 100 feet by 150 feet away from 0, 0, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw these items in 3D and they're gonna dump them into just one big electronic AutoCAD file. So it needs to throw in there right where it needs to be 0, 0. If you're doing a piece of pipe like what they're doing, you've got your vessel that the vessel company has already sent their 3D in, and that vessel dropped right in there 100 by 150 feet away from 0, 0, right there virtually where it's supposed to be. If your pipe is not positioned correctly, it doesn't just drop in there. It doesn't drop in next to that vessel. It doesn't mate up to that flange on the vessel like it's supposed to be. The first thing they would have to do would be to move it, possibly rotate it, rearrange it, orient it based on that vessel over there. Well, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna call your company up and say, hey, y'all send us this stuff. But that pipe's not dropping in next to that vessel. It's dropping in way over there to the east of it. It's not a good thing. It needs to drop in there, right there where it needs to be. So anytime you're doing something like this to where you're mating one drawing to the next is very important. 0, 0 is your insertion point. Sometimes that means you're drawing it, like I said, you're not drawing around that little XYZ 0, 0, 0 point. You're drawing off in space so that whenever it gets dumped into that virtual model, it falls right in place where it needs to be. So on this one, I'm gonna make sure to set that to 0, 0. That's the only change that I'm gonna make, okay? I don't know how well y'all can see it, but there's that rectangular box that came in. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill this. I can't see it that good. What it is versus the other drawing, these come in kind of as a, well, kind of like that watermark. It's not bold like it just got printed on there when it came out of the printer. It's kind of grayscale, it's kind of lighter in there. So it's there, I just don't know how well y'all can see it. But there's the box right there. So maybe they send us this XREF over. We drop it in our drawings like, hey boss, this thing's not dropping in there correctly. You know, the stuff that they said to draw and where they said to draw it is outside that XREF, outside of our work area. So the supervisor, whoever's over it calls them up and they say, yeah, we didn't know where it would be or how big that project would be, so it's okay to extend your work area. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this rectangle, I'm gonna drag it in this direction about 20 feet, which I think will be enough. I'm gonna drag this side about 10 feet in this direction, which once again, I think is gonna be enough. And then I'm gonna save that drawing. Now when I come back over here to XR2, you will see this little window pop up down here, this little bubble that says, an XREF was modified, reload XR1. So it's saying, hey, you know, there's something has changed about that overlay that you've got, ref that you've got. And it's telling us that we need to click there to modify that drawing. So once again, let me see if it'll stay lit up through the change. There's the current XREF. You can see that as I made the changes on the other drawing and then updated this drawing, those changes came in. So it's a live link to that other DWG, that XREF file that we brought in. The beauty of that is that when your supervisor or job, whoever's over that project that you're working on, you might have 100 drafters in there working on drawing pipes up for a project. That supervisor or superintendent doesn't have to stand at the door with a box of thumb drives saying, here, that footprint changed. Put this in your computer and use this now. Here's yours to everybody that comes in. And then have to go around and check and say, all right, did you use that? Did you use the new version? Let me see it on your screen. Did you use the new? He doesn't have to go through there and check that. By doing that, that can make it accessible to the whole drafting department. So ExxonMobil called up and says, yeah, okay, yeah, we wasn't sure about the area that You can bring it this far to the west, this far to the south, boom, now we throw it on there, everything looks great. But main thing is, we didn't have to go through and change it individually on every one of the computers. We didn't have to go around and look to see that all of the computers did it. If I told it no, then it would send a link back saying that this computer or this station or this login denied that change, did not make that change. They don't have to stand there if somebody comes in an hour late, oh, let me go catch them before they sit down. They gotta sit there and watch the door all day until everybody gets there. So the XREF is a great tool for that. It's kind of like, I think I showed y'all the Excel file bringing a chart in. Did I show y'all that earlier in the semester when y'all were doing some 2D drawings so y'all could put that chart on there? I may go through that again also in a little while, but that was also another live link. We were able to go over that Excel file, make changes on that Excel file, add lines, save it, and then go back to our AutoCAD drawing. We had one of those bubbles that popped up that said, a change was made on this, do you want to accept it, do you want to update this drawing? Granted, it's not like an automatic where we walk in and sit down and we open up the drawing and it's changed. It's gonna have that bubble saying, hey, a change was made to this document that is a live link that is attached to this drawing. Click here to update and accept the changes. So that's one way of inserting or putting something into your drawing. That's what it was. I had to click that little complete button. That's why it was still showing me that old one. So there's your rectangle right there. Now it fits. We call the boss up and say, hey boss, or we go up to his office, her office. Boss said, what great, it fit perfect, it covers our area. Let them know we're good to go now. And the job moves on. Without having to, like I said, in a larger company, having to sit there and manually get with everyone, make sure that they put that thumb drive in, make sure that they made the correct changes and additions based on what was on that thumb drive. Because we don't want somebody to sit there, maybe Stuart gets it, Stuart says, dang it, I've been working on these pipes right here for the last 3 weeks. And then they send us this, and now all of a sudden we've got a little control shaft right there in the middle of the pipe. I don't want to do that. I already saw it on so-and-so's computer over there. I saw Gage put it on his computer. I know it's going to screw up the work I've been doing. I'm just not going to accept it. Well, it's going to let them know that that computer station did not accept that change or that correction. So it's kind of a fail-safe, but it also saves a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that everybody is working with the correct information. So that's one way of inserting. Here is a 3D drawing that I've got. I'm going to show y'all real quick on this, the align command. The align command, there is a 3D align, but the align command, even the 2D version, will work on 3D. So what the align command does is allows us to take objects and make them or move them, rotate them, whatever we need to do based on another object. So if I go into the align command, the AL is just the 2D align, but like I said, both of them work in 2D or 3D. They do work a little bit differently as far as their prompts that go through. So we'll go through this one first. I'm gonna hit AL and spacebar for the align command. AutoCAD says, what do you want to align? I'm gonna say this object right here. That means that I want to take this object and move it somewhere else and align it. The first object you select is the object that you are moving to the other object. So I select that to be my object to align, hit enter or spacebar. AutoCAD says specify first point. So with a 3D align, you've got 3 points that you're going to be telling AutoCAD to use. And each one of those 3 points will have a source and destination. The source point is where it's at, the destination is where you want it to be. So AutoCAD says specify first source point. I'm going to come up here and pick the center on this end of your peg. Remember in 3D, if you need to, roll your objects around to isolate those object snap points. Use your 2D or your wireframe if you need to, and also shift right click if you need to force those object snap points on AutoCAD. Like my 3D pipe, or the pipe that they're drawing in 3D. Once they start drawing this pipe and they've got elbows, T's, reducers, all these different fittings out there, when they hover over a point, there might be 6 or 8 different centers because of the stuff that's in the background, maybe 6 or 8 different centers that it could be. So, it kind of turns into a guessing game, but if you slowly just focus on what you're doing, try to spin your objects around there where you can see it and isolate it. It'll make it a lot easier, and then also specify and force those object snap points on AutoCAD. So I'm gonna tell it the center of this end of that cylinder. AutoCAD says first destination point. So the source point is right here. The destination is gonna be up here in the back of that little hole right there where that peg goes. That's what I'm telling AutoCAD. Take this object, take this point and match it to this point. Take this point, match it to this point. Take this point, match it to this point. So in 3D, we're gonna have 3 source and 3 destination points. In the 2D align, the one that I'm in right now, which is AL and spacebar, it goes 1, 2, 3, source, destination, source, destination, source, destination. Whereas the 3D align goes source, 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 destination, destination, destination. Both of them work in 2D or 3D. There's just a different flow of how they go. So be sure, now that you're new at this 3D, make sure and be reading your command line down there so you know what it's asking you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll that up a little bit, and then I'm gonna force that object snap point on AutoCAD. I'm gonna tell AutoCAD center, and that way I can just come in here and get around the curl of that back right. I cut that little slot, that little peg hole out. I can get back up here inside there by rolling this around to where I can see, zooming in a little bit, and then forcing that object snap point to guarantee that I get the correct point out there. So I select that source and destination. AutoCAD says second source point. I'm gonna come up and pick a quadrant here. AutoCAD says second destination. I'm gonna come in and pick a quadrant back there at the back. AutoCAD says third source point. I'm gonna come up and pick a quadrant right here. And I'm gonna pick a quadrant up here at the front of that hole, which should complete the command and move that slot or that peg into place. Now the reason it did that was because I wasn't sure, but on that second and third points, I think I picked a quadrant over here and then a quadrant over here, which made it spin out. So that's okay, I understand, I know what I did wrong. I'm gonna go through it again, select this object, center up here, center back in there. Quadrant on the front this time, quadrant on the bottom over there, quadrant on this end on the front, bottom of this end over here, and that worked out perfect. So that's what I did. I picked 2 opposite quadrants, or 2 different quadrants, so I had to twist it to put it in. I'll do the same thing with this other one, so space bar to go back into it. I'll pick this center. I'll force this center on AutoCAD. I'm gonna pick a quadrant on this end. This is where I picked the center at, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna pick this quadrant, put it on the bottom back there. Pick this quadrant, put it on the bottom up here. That one spun into place. Last thing I'm gonna do is the same thing with this peg right here. So I'm gonna tell AutoCAD to take that corner, align it with that corner, take that corner, align it with that corner, and to take this center and align it with that center. Didn't work too well. Try that again. I know what I did wrong. This is how you learn. By doing it wrong, it's a very good way to learn how to do this stuff correctly. So now I'm gonna pick this quadrant right here on the bottom, on the front of this hole, and I'm gonna pick this quadrant right down here on the bottom there. Bam. So that's your align command. Like I said, that is the 2D align. Right here. That's what the button looks like. If I switch to 3D modeling, right here you'll see we have the 3D align. Both of them perform the exact same function, They just have a different process of going through it. One of them says source, destination, source, destination, source, destination. The other one says source, 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 destination, destination, destination. Still should perform the same, should work out correctly either way. So any questions about that I did with the align command? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bust them back apart and show y'all one of our other block commands. So what we've got here are 4 individual objects. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make some blocks. We already know one way of making a block. Let me go ahead and open up my master drawing for this class. So I'm gonna go back to my pegs. We already know how to do this. Control-Shift-C, pick a base point, select an object, hit enter, go to your drawing where you want to put it at. Control-V to pull it from the clipboard, or Control-Shift-V to insert it as a block. The only difference, I only had one object. If I bring in Control-Shift-C, I'm gonna bring in these 2 objects. When I come over here to my master drawing, Control-V, the first one I did is just a simple paste. Once I stick it in there, those 2 objects are independent of each other. They can be moved, copied, rotated without affecting the other one. Control-Shift-V, like what I told you about the border and title block, Control-Shift-V still copies them from the clipboard to your drawing. The biggest difference is with Control-Shift-V, they're locked in together as a block, so they are considered all one unit. Even if they are not touching, you cannot do something to one of them without affecting the other one unless you go X and space bar and explode those objects. Once you explode them, now they're individual entities. So I'm gonna go back over to this drawing. Another way that we make blocks is exactly that, the make command. It's found on the insert tab, or the create block. I think the alias for this one is B and spacebar. Yep. So with this block, the make block or create block command, what this one does, it makes a block inside this drawing and inside this drawing only. So I'm gonna call it a peg. I'm gonna tell it that I want to specify on screen with the base point. So it gives me a little checklist to go through. Like I said, lots of times this is a biggie, you wanna specify it on screen, but frequently if you're doing like I told you about a while ago where you're dumping it into a virtual model, you'll wanna make sure and turn that off and keep 0, 0, 0 and everything set based on that. I'm gonna do specify on screen, which means I'm gonna select a point and tell AutoCAD this is my base point. Over here in this middle section right here, objects, I'm going to specify or select them, but you can see that I can do all of the objects. I can retain those objects as they are. I can convert them to a block, similar to when I just dumped those 2 pegs over there. Control-Shift-V, I told you it locked them as a block, so they were associated to each other. They were locked in that position. You couldn't do something to one without affecting the other one. And then you also have the delete option. The delete option is where someone comes by that thinks they're better than everybody else. They come by and say, hey, I'm going to lunch with the boss. I need this elbow drawn. So go ahead and draw this elbow up while I'm gone and just put it on the server so I can get to it after a while. So you say, well, all right, I can do that, but I don't need to keep them on this page. So you can actually delete them after you get through instead of having to go back and erase it afterwards. I'm gonna go ahead and select the convert to block. And then I'm gonna come up here and pick the select objects button. And I'm gonna select these 2 pegs right here. I'm gonna tell it okay. That's where AutoCAD says, where's your base point? Because I told AutoCAD I wanted to specify it on screen. So I'm just gonna come up and pick a point at the bottom of this peg and everything's great. If I go into my insert command, you see insert down here, similar to that XREF that we did a moment ago. The alias is I. If I go I and spacebar, it's similar to that XREF dialog box that we had earlier. Now this is all different in this latest version of AutoCAD, as far as what you've got, how to go about these insert and blocking commands. Older versions of AutoCAD had a dialog box that would open up. Some of them had it all in the command line. But the most recent versions of AutoCAD did have them in a box like this, but it was a totally different layout. So this took me a little bit to get used to up there when we got the new version of AutoCAD up at DD6. So you can see that I've got this peg right here. I can take that and drag it out into my screen, similar to what I told you the larger engineering companies have. They have a pre-drawn entities similar to this box right here, or just like this box, that they can just reach over and click on it and drag it out into their screen. So normally this menu would be over on my other screen or my other monitor, so it wasn't taking up this sizable drawing space. But the thing about this is all this did was made a block inside this drawing. That block is not accessible by someone else. It's not accessible by me or another user in another drawing. It's only accessible inside this drawing. This block is not your most popular block because of the fact that it's only accessible inside this one drawing. The more common block is going to be the right block. Now, when we first started using this, I was at Williams Fire and Hazard Control. It was just called a W block. We thought it stood for world block because you can make it available to anybody else that has access to that server wherever it's stored at. But we found out later on it was called right block. All we knew it was called W block. So just like B and spacebar goes into your regular block command, W and spacebar goes into your right block command. So this box does look a little bit different. We can select a block, in other words, a block that we've already got inside this drawing, which is the only one that we have. When I pull down that menu, you see is the peg. So if we made it inside this drawing and we want to make it accessible to Mr. Big Shot when they come back from lunch, or Miss Big Shot when they come back from lunch, we can still take it from here and put it on the server. But it's easier or better, in my opinion, if you do it from Jump Street. So we can tell them that we want the source, we want to do this entire drawing. Or we can tell AutoCAD that we want to select the objects that we want to place in that block. So I'm gonna come over here. We've got some more places right here to address. So after we do the top, the source, the next thing is the base point. Like I said, frequently your base point is gonna be 0, 0. The majority of the time, your base point is gonna be 0, 0, 0. When y'all drew this last assembly, this P19 assembly, I had y'all and gave y'all a 0, 0 point for each one of those objects. Had I not done that, your better path would have been to draw that first object, the square piece with the peg sticking up, to draw that based on 0, 0, and then to draw that second part 1/2 inch higher. That way, when you put it into this, put those together in that assembly drawing, it would have dropped right into place. Move it up or adjust up 1/2 inch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and tell AutoCAD that I want to pick a point. I'm gonna say corner right here of this block. So it found that point. Over here in this next section, just like the other block, it says what do you want to do, what objects. So we've got filter buttons a lot of times where you can go through and just say, I want to grab everything in this layer. I want to grab everything that meets this quick select filtering condition. I'm gonna go with these select objects. AutoCAD says what objects. I'm gonna select this object, hit enter, spacebar to go back. So previously, just like earlier on the other block command, it had that little yellow triangle with the exclamation point in the center. We've still got our same 3 options. We can retain it in this drawing. We can convert it to a block, which really doesn't matter because it's only one object. Or we can actually delete it from the drawing after we get through. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that retained so that it stays the way it is in this drawing. Down here in this next section is the destination. So the block command, the create block, did not have this box in there. It was only creating that block inside that drawing file. So with the right block, what you can do is come over here with this little ellipsis button, a little button with the 3 dots, merely just a browse button. I can select that button and tell AutoCAD where I want to save it to, what file, what folder I want to put it in, and also give it the name and everything. So I'm gonna go through and find my folder for this class. A little bit of a walk to it, but that's okay. Get used to that. Up there where I'm at, I might have to, on some of the projects, I might have to click in a dozen folders before I get to the folder I'm looking for. So here's where I wanna put it at. I'm gonna go ahead and call it block. You'll notice that whenever if you've noticed before, whenever I do a save as or do something that's asking me something about this drawing, down here on the bottom, files of type, I keep mine defaulting to 2004 up here. The reason for that being, it's not that I'm trying to keep some old settings in there or anything. The reason for that is when I take this drawing, if I go to the house to work on some of these, my personal AutoCAD that I have on my computer at the house is 2004 AutoCAD. That's why I always save mine back. So remember, AutoCAD will not recognize and open up future versions. So if I go back on my 2004 AutoCAD at the house and I try to open up a drawing that's saved as a 2018, it'll just say can't read. It'll ignore it. It will not let you open it. This kind of bit me one time about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago when I was working at Bramer Construction in Nederland. I'd been up to night class, the students were working, so I worked on a project that I brought up there with me. I told the customer that, hey, we'll be there at 7 in the morning, come on by, I'll print your drawing up. You can look at it, take it with you, mark it up, whatever you want to do. But I told them I'd be there at 7 o'clock the next morning with their drawing. So I got up here at class the night before, I opened up the drawing, I did some work on it, saved the drawing, but I didn't pay attention to what I was saving it as, which I think at the time was like 2013 AutoCAD, and we were using possibly 2004 over there. So I get up the next morning, like I said, I'm always early anyway, so I get up the next morning, I go up there, it's still 30, 45 minutes before we're supposed to start. Somebody would always bring donuts, would sit around and shoot the breeze before everybody went off to wherever they were working at. So I'd gotten up there early that day, went in there, stuck my thumb drive in, went to open up and wouldn't open up the drawing file. And I had one of those oh crap moments. But luckily I just calmed down a little bit, thought about it. That's something that you need to learn to be able to do as a drafter, is be a problem solver. It's not always just here, draw this and champagne and stuff flows, chocolate's falling everywhere, it's a great day. There are times where you're gonna struggle, you're gonna have problems. The best thing you can do is just keep a cool head. Be okay with going to ask someone, say, look, I don't know what I did, but I need help. I do it still. I know, I understand and accept that I don't know everything about this software. I understand and accept that there's times where another set of eyes might be able to show me something that I already knew and I already saw, but I was so panicky, so nervous that I just didn't see it, couldn't see the trees from the forest. So this right here, when I got up there and I calmed down for a few seconds, all this happened in about a minute. Because I just went, my booty hole shrunk up, couldn't get a needle up, with the jackhammer. I was like, oh crap, I know that customer's probably leaving the house. I may be able to call them and catch them on the way and say, I'm sorry, I'm a dumbass, I screwed up. I'm not gonna have it ready. But I didn't. I just calmly relaxed for a second, thought about it, thought about the problem. File's not opening. What could be the cause of that? And ding, 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 the little light bulb went off. It's like, oh crap. Closed that stuff down, ripped my thumb drive out, drove up here, hauled butt up here, came in, logged in, tapped my fingers while I was waiting for the computer to take that minute or so to log me in, another minute or two to open up AutoCAD. Seemed like 20 minutes on both of them. It was probably about a minute. Opened it up, did a save as, changed my files of type down there, closed down, logged out, jumped back in my truck, hauled butts in Nederland, put it in, boom, it opened up, I plotted it out. Customer walked in a few minutes later, didn't even know anything was wrong, judged by looking at me or by, I had his drawing or her drawing for him. Everything was great. Nobody knew the level of stress that I was at 30 or 45 minutes before then. But that's okay. I just calmly thought about it and said, okay, this is the problem, what's the solution? So sometimes just step back and look at it like that or ask for help. So it's asking me about the name, back to over here, I'm gonna pick save. To my right block dialog box, objects I've already selected. I did my base point. I selected my objects. I came through and gave it a name. You will see right here that it says that it shows my path. The E drive, folder 2022, Lamar accredited standard, ACAD 2319 drawings, and then boom, there's the name of it, block.dwg. So I pick OK, everything's great. I come over to this other drawing, say, all right, I need to go through and put that in. Go to my insert command. You can see that it's not shown here. I've got, I guess that's the peg that I brought in singly. I brought in the double pegs. I've got my borders that I brought in. I'm gonna go through and find it. So I'm gonna go through and find it. Like I said, I've only been working with this for a while. They change stuff up every now and then. The guy that does drafting in there with me ruins his whole week. You know, for me, it is what it is. You know, if I get out there and the hammer's broken, I still gotta hammer something in. That's okay. I'm gonna figure out a way. I'm not gonna freak out over it. That doesn't help anything. So I go through and find it. Bam, there it is. AutoCAD says, where do you want to place it at? I pick a point and it's in there. So the right block is accessible outside of that initial drawing that you created. Unlike over here, when I went into this command, that block is only accessible, this drawing, that block is only accessible inside this drawing. So the right block is the more applicable one in most industries. You've got that server over there. Everyone's got access to that server. You do the item, draw it, whatever it is, you save it to the server over there. Anybody that's got access to that server can go through and download it. That's what most of you will see in industry. Up there where I'm at, there's 3 engineers, 2 drafters, 4 surveyors, at least, that have access to what's called our P drive up there where we're at. It's the engineering files, engineering folders, all our job files and stuff. There's about 6 or 8 of us that have access to that. So normally if you go into a bigger company, that server is gonna be partitioned to where like everybody's saving to the same servers, but the accounting people have stuff that only they can access. They don't want everybody in the company seeing money stuff. The sales people have their section, they're partitioned off. The IT department sets it up like that to where people have access to different portions of that server, different areas to save in, different areas to open and access from. So this is something that very likely y'all would use in industry. So any questions about those 3 blocking actually really 4 count the XREF. We had the XREF, we had the copy into clipboard, and then control V or control shift V to paste it into a drawing. And then we had just our regular create block, and we also had our write block. So any questions on those? All right, watch Blackboard. That's it for tonight. Kind of let down that nobody brought me any chocolate up here tonight. I know